Right, we are currently live. Hello.
Hi. Sorry, you're saying hello to me, not to everybody else, are you?
Both. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I am Nick at the Book Loft in Ohio, the United States, here with Alexis Hall from across the ocean. We are here for, firstly, this event was scheduled for Hell's Heart, but we have also come through the release of Father material as well, the conclusion, I believe, to the trilogy, the Material trilogy.
Yes, indeed.
Uh, but yeah, how are you doing tonight?
Hot sorry is that's the only answer you get from anyone in the entire country today, except for Keir Starmer. The answer will be resigning, but otherwise, yeah, just hot. It's really hot over here.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different like videos online of everybody talking about that. It's not much cooler here either. I guess we have the benefit of well, not really benefit, but a difference of air conditioning.
Yeah, no,
But
it does make a huge difference. Because the problem with the UK is the UK is stiflingly hot for about 3 days a year, and it is not worth installing air conditioning in every building in the country for 3 days a year. So we just have 3 days a year where everyone is dead.
yeah, that makes sense for sure. But yeah, so because we're sort of talking about two different worlds here, I was going to ask you which you wanted to start with. Would you rather start with the material series and the conclusion, or would you rather speak about Hell's Heart first?
Oh gosh, I honestly don't mind. I like the part of me that is like kind of picky about these kind of things. Thinks do it in publication order, but it might also depend on like I ramble, which means I might go long about whichever one we talk about first, is the other thing to think about. So,
Well, we do have a lot of people so far in the chat room here. Would anyone have a preference over what we talked about first? Give it just a second to catch up. Okay, there we go. Now I see them rolling in. Okay, it looks like people are wanting to talk about father material first.
that works for me.
All right. So full disclosure, I read at a bit of a snail's pace and I've had a crazy week. Here in Ohio, we just had our Pride Festival that
Oh,
our
lovely.
bookstore, yeah, our bookstore attended, which by the way, the entire Material trilogy flew. It's a great
Oh,
favorite
fantastic.
here in the Midwest, yeah. Um, but yeah, I've gotten a little bit into father material after refreshing my memory on the other two. So I full disclosure there. But from what I've gotten into so far, it's absolutely delightful,
Oh,
and
thank you.
your writing is incredibly witty. And I will say what sparked my interest was Hell's Heart first. That's
That's
like
okay.
sci-fi and fantasy is my wheelhouse. And when picking up romance titles like that, it really grabbed me. It was amazing,
No,
amazing.
I'm glad. This does mean that this conversation is going to be full of spoilers for you, so I apologize.
Oh no, it's all good. I fully expected that, so no worries at all. Yeah, it looks like people in the chat are talking about Spud the puppy.
Oh,
Which I am very endearing. I love that they have that dynamic and sort of getting into the story and using that before we introduce Jazz and
yes.
that element of the story.
Can I just clarify, by the way? I'm not seeing a chat here. Is this chat on YouTube?
Oh, yes, yes, it is.
Cool. But anything that happens in the chat, I will. So if you are addressing me in chat and I'm not reacting, I'm not blanking you. I literally can't see you.
Oh yes, of course. Sorry, sorry. I will relay anything to you, of course. But yeah,
But I'm glad you like the puppy.
yeah. Spud is it's such a great name. Like I love dogs with food names so much.
It is a good one. Like it's yeah, no, God does with food names like great. Also, I think there, there's a weird. It's not even a trend. I've known multiple dogs with potato names. Like I think I met someone once who had a dog called Maris, as in Piper,
Oh yeah.
which is rather cute.
See, it's a lot of my questions I'm sure you've already heard before about the Father material series, the entire material series, really. I think my first one, overall with the series is what made you decide to go with, for their professions, or I suppose their backgrounds, a barrister and, the son of a rock star, like adjacent famous.
So so at the time I sorry, I've been drinking a lot of water today. At the time I pitched um boyfriend material. Fake dating was very big. So the original plan was do a fake dating book, and then the question was, and the thing is, like, very often the fake dating thing is like, it's like, I need a date for my like kind of cousin's wedding. Um, but often the premises of fake dating books, particularly like MF fake dating books, kind of rely on the pressures that heterosexual women experience to do with like the pressure to have a man at a certain stage of your life, and like that's not really a pressure that makes the same kind of sense, at least in the queer circles I move in. So I wanted a premise that. Sorry, I you asked about professions. I'm going to premise, but it will map out. I wanted a premise that would give a gay man a reason to need a fake boyfriend. And what I came up with was, well, what if he had kind of a bad reputation or a wild child background, and he needed a respectable boyfriend so that he could sort of almost rehabilitate his person isn't quite right, but so he could like kind of perform being the right kind of gay to the world, which is itself goes to complex places. That's part of what the book's about. And so that then meant that they kind of had to be very respectable pillar of the community type person and slightly wacky person, and so that wound up being son of a rock star and barrister.
That makes a lot of sense. I just really love how I don't know their backgrounds or professions. They seem like something outside of the realm of normal, I guess I would say. But yet they're very still people that you can really relate to, despite like not living lives that the average person might. And I think it really blew me away.
No, I'm glad. Like it's a obviously for Luke's job in particular is that a lot of what it draws on is kind of a very specific kind of almost like British comedy tradition of just like the extremely weird wacky office space. So this is to which that's kind of that's I hope simultaneously kind of relatable to anyone that's had an office job while also yes not being normal for anyone because it's deliberately absurdist.
I definitely got that vibe. Oh, on that note, there was a great question just now in the YouTube chat. Um, Someone wanted to know if you had actually worked in development for a nonprofit because you seriously nailed what it's like. Kind of made me think of that, like that funny office banter with the crap organization. Yeah.
RIPP, please. No, I have not. No, I'm I'm a professional make stuff upper. I try to kind of get us, to get a sense of what things are like as best I can. But sometimes, and like I've I've been involved in a variety of like officey spaces and in a variety of organizations where people were kind of vaguely trying to do good stuff. I've never like had an actual job for a nonprofit.
That also, yeah, it really like nailed it for that sort of like strange, we're here for a purpose, but
Hmm.
yet it's a job at the same time.
Yeah.
It's very on the head. Um, I think my next question, kind of part of that, is what led you to the decision of specifically a dung beetle nonprofit? Because
So,
it's
so
genius.
thank you so much. It partly I just it like not that actual charity because it's made up, but like a specific. I happened to like see a thing for Lambda charity one day, but I wanted it to be a bit farcical. I wanted it to be a bit. I'm gonna say absurdist a lot to be a bit absurdist. I do also like there's a bit in the first book where Luke is like trying to pitch his charity to Sophie, and one of the things he said is, you can score points off your holier than thou friends by donating to a more obscure charity than them. And I do like there is a real I have known people who've been vaguely in the sector, and there are genuine things where like kind of there are certain areas of charity that are over marketed because they're kind of cool and sexy. um, saving attractive animals, curing diseases that affect sympathetic people. Um, and then there are things like saving dung beetles. And funny enough, basically no one wants to save dung beetles because because they're not cool. They're quite boring. They're kind of ecologically really important. Um, so it made I quite liked that vibe for this institution, and obviously because Dr. Fairclough is genuinely a true believer in it, I wanted it to be something that you could be a true believer in a slightly weird, I'm gonna say absurdist a lot, in a slightly absurdist way.
Yeah, that it's just it was so off the wall and yet so specifically niche. Like it made it believable, even though it was so unbelievable.
That's what I'm going for.
It was great. We've got another one here. This one's kind of a funny question. Will we get the recipe for the special curry?
I don't think there is a fixed recipe for the special curry. I think it's like I feel like a deal very much kind of goes with what like her soul tells her in the moment. Like there's I would also say like I'm genuinely worried about liabilities because like I don't think you should eat a curry that contains the things that are canonically put in the special curry.
All I can think is the if you've seen The Good Place, the scene where Chidi's got the peeps in the chili pot.
Oh gosh, I have seen The Good Place, but I do not remember that specific episode.
Oh
I watched it
God.
like when it came out, so it was a while ago now.
Oh God. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up with the chat here. We got
No, of
a lot
course.
of folks. This is great. Let's see. Ooh, this one is good. This one's about father material specifically.
Okay, cool.
The struggles of all of their combined friendships over children. As someone who underwent IVF, they felt incredibly seen and they were
Oh,
loved
thank you.
it. Yeah, I think that was such a cool like way. It also is like a great mirror to the second book as well, with like
Hmm.
the continuous weddings and that
Yeah.
pressure almost. Let's see. Um, my one of my questions. When it comes to the decision for when in father material, and I did just get up to this point with Jazz, the decision for like an older adopting an older or fostering, I should say, an older
Yeah.
child. Um, it's something that's like I don't know. In the States, it's a little different. It's a little more difficult.
Hmm.
it didn't make it unbelievable for me per
Same.
se, but what's it sort of like in your side of things?
So, so in the UK we have a real shortage of foster families,
Mm,
and particularly for fostering old people who want to foster older children. So it's and you like it's a thing with adoption as well because like people generally want to adopt a baby. They don't want to adopt someone who's like kind of you know 6, 7, 8, 14. Um, but at least in this, but at least in this country, like kind of the you'll be in the foster system till like think usually about 18 if
mm,
or okay well that's not quite necessarily right. You'll be in the foster system either until something gets you out of it or until you're 18, at which point you kind of then become a care leaver, and then there's like
mm,
there's work on getting more support for care leavers, but it's not honestly great. um But at least over here, you can foster older people, and we need people to foster older people. One of the reasons I have them foster rather than adopt is because actually I think anything that raises awareness of fostering is kind of good.
mm.
Because sorry, I just called myself good there, which isn't great. But no, there's a huge shortage of foster carers in this country, and a lot of people do skew towards wanting to take younger children because they're easier. Easier is probably not the right way to put it. For whatever reason, people often want younger children because that's kind of the vibe they're after. But you do get people who've been in the foster system who are 16, 17, 18, and they will often need somewhere to stay. And yes, a lot of them are more likely to stay in like homes, but you can actually take someone in as well.
Hmm. Ooh, we've got another father material question that just popped up. Bridge giving birth on a bridge killed me. Where did this idea come from?
Sort of basically from I mean vibes really is um is the it's so there's a scene in the previous book where they meet on the bridge just before because Luke's having like second feet. He's having cold thoughts and second feet about the wedding.
Mhm.
As I've said, it's really hot over here, and I'm a bit. Ugh. Um, and I wanted something to sort of to echo that, and also like the style of rom-com that the Material series is inspired by and based on is very it's got certain tropes and the we have to rush across town because like someone's giving birth right now is a trope in that kind of really specific wacky rom-com, and I really wanted to do kind of as many of these specific wacky rom-com tropes as I could. um
That's another instance too, though, where like it's a pun in her name, and yet,
mhm.
despite the unbelievability of it, you're so in the world that you've created that it's completely plausible to the reader. It's like, of course, she gave birth on a bridge.
Yeah, yeah, it just happens.
Okay. Ooh, here's a good one. Did we ever get told what breed of dog Spud is? I pictured a French bulldog.
So Spud is a specifically a rescue dog and is almost certainly a mongrel. I
Hmm.
don't think I like so I've got a picture kicking around somewhere that I use as the visual reference for Spud, but I didn't. I'm I'm not a huge fan of pure breed dogs because obviously there's complexities to how to how that goes. Um, so I don't necessarily have a good knowledge of dog breeds. I tend to assume that Spud was a mutt.
That makes sense, especially with, Oliver's ethics and such.
Exactly.
Um, let's see here. Ooh, here's a good one. This is sort of like overarching, for your work in general. How real do your characters feel to you? I've read your books, and I can so clearly picture them.
It's it's that's a tricky one because I I am a very writing as craft person.
Mhm.
I'm not, and again, I don't mean this in a disparaging way or this dismissive of people's process, but I'm not one of those authors who's like, yes, my characters are alive and they speak to me. Like I am very, very conscious that my characters are fictional constructs that I create and control. They don't do or say anything I don't tell them to do. Um, Obviously, I try to make sure that they feel authentic. I try to put as much work into making that come across. But I think because I'm close to it, I think it's a lot, perhaps for me, a lot easier to see the strings. Um, because like there's no one I know in real life with whom I've done the same scene three different times in three different ways to see which one works better, you know?
I can definitely see that, like getting not lost in your work per se, but sort of a repetition can kind of, get to you. I can totally see that. Um, ooh, here's a couple of spoiler questions.
Ooh.
Um, I've been thinking about Oliver's conflict between wanting to do what he knew was right and by helping to reunite Jazz.
Yeah, of
Um, I'll leave that question hanging just in case other folks listening don't want the rest of the spoilers. But
course, yes. So do you want me to do you want me to talk about that? Or do you want to move on to another one that's less spoilery?
um, let's see. Ooh, this one, this sort of is part of it. I think it would be a little less revealing. This one says, if Jazz ever went back to visit Spud, Luke, and Oliver.
I I suspect she does.
Hmm.
Like it's a if you're playing the Alexis Hall drinking game, which I am sure some people do, then this is a bit where I talk about the death of the author. Um, I am very much of the opinion that my authority over the book ends when you close. First of all, not when you close the book, because it ends at the last page.
Mhm.
Um, what you think happens after the book happens is what happens after the book happens. My my opinions are not canon; they are not facts. I can't change, you know, your interpretation of what I wrote by giving an interview 3 years down the line. Um, I think it's likely she will. Like she's there for a long time. There's genuine affection there by the end, I hope. On the other hand, people do like, and this becomes a complex one. Like I know people who call their parents every week, and I know people who haven't spoken to their parents in a very, very long time. And that's partly due to a bunch of contextual things, but it's a bit different people are different about staying in touch, if you see what I mean. Some people drift.
Yeah, I that definitely tracks with the ending. I can definitely see. I really love how you sort of leave that open ending,
Mhm.
allowing for like interpretation of like your writing. That's a really great way to present it. I think that's it's I don't want to say it like my brain went to fan fiction, but obviously it's like it makes me think of like different forms of media like TV shows and movies where
Yeah.
the artists or the people creators behind it are embracing of like the different viewpoints and different
Mhm.
interpretations of their work. Like I think that's such a great way to showcase your art.
It's like, yeah. Also, go to fan fiction. That's completely fine. I am not offended by that comparison.
Understandable. Um, let's see. So we're at almost at the 30-minute mark here. Just being mindful of time for our time differences. Does anyone in the audience currently have any more questions for the material universe before we flip over to Hell's Heart? Ooh, that was fast. Let's see. Okay. Well, this is one I've been wondering too. Will we see more of Luke and Oliver, or is this the final end of their story?
So pretty much, I mean, it's complex. I don't want to bait people, but I also I hedge. I come from a hedgy culture. Um, my current intent is that this is the end. This is the end of Luke and Oliver's story. There's not really anywhere I plan to go from here. Partly, partly because to be slightly morbid, you were sort of you've had the meeting one, the wedding one, and the and the parenthood one. The next milestones that come up after that can get quite dark. I don't think we necessarily want like funeral material. Um, but
I mean, we kind of already had that. I mean,
yeah, no, exactly. It's because of the wedding stuff. It's but I I felt very privileged to stay with these characters for as long as I have, and to look at their relationship in sort of over a timeline that you often don't get to look at a relationship over. And there is part of it that would like at some point to write something about some older characters at an even later stage of their life. I That probably won't be Luke and Oliver, but never say never. Pretty much is the end.
I did feel like it was such a great wrap up to their story. It just naturally flowed from the first to the third, and I really couldn't like. Part of me wishes for like, oh, maybe we'll get like a little bonus novella, but at the same time, it's still like such a great like finished package, I guess I'll say.
Thank you.
Let's see. Oh, here's one. What's your process when it comes to approaching heavy topics like trauma, foster kids, and things of that nature?
So I don't like describing myself as having a process. I you know, I try to be respectful. I I don't like talking about having a process, and I don't like talking about doing research because I think it's really important to me that, like, yeah, my books are fiction. Please do not learn about fostering from my books. They are made up. I have looked into it, but I have not. It's not my primary like area of specialization. Primary area of specialization is being a novelist. Um, I try to be sincere. I try to be authentic as I can be. I think one of the things to realize is that I think with any heavy topic, there are going to be people that respond positively to the way you handle it. There are going to be people who respond negatively to the way you handle it, and you have to accept that those exist, and those will both exist, and they'll both happen, and you kind of can't stress it too much. It's just like someone saying they felt very seen by the IVF stuff with the friend group, and sorry, stuff sounds really a really dismissive way of putting it, but the subplot in the with the friend group, and that's great. And I always feel very grateful when people express that they feel seen by my work, but I'm very conscious there will be other people who've had similar experience who don't necessarily feel that the way I write about fostering or trauma or mental health or IVF or having a puppy is true to their experience of it or true to their understanding of it. And I'm sure there are some people who for whom that feels bad, and I'm sorry to those people, but also there is people's experiences are different, and not everyone's going to speak to everyone. And I think you can sometimes tie yourself up in knots, imagining that there is like this one perfect way to write about a particular thing. And if you don't do it like exactly that way, then it's going to be bad. And I suppose to let go a little more than that. I try to be honest. I try to work in good faith, I think is the way I put it.
I think describing as not having a process when it comes to things that are that sensitive, I suppose I'll say, is very. I think it really speaks to me. It's very important. I think like you can address things with nuance, but you shouldn't be clinical about it. And
Exactly.
I think, yeah, I think it came across very well in that way.
Thank you.
Let's see. Ooh, one last one. I don't know if you would be able to ask any or answer anything about this. There's a couple different people that have mentioned it so far. Are there any updates on any TV show coming out of boyfriend material?
I'm afraid I do not have information on this. I am not in control of this. That's happening kind of in the background. Like where I am very grateful to be where I am. I the TV industry is a really, really complicated industry,
Mhm.
and for my own mental health, I just kind of don't think about it because Like it, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't happen. Like you can make a freaking pilot for something, and it won't happen. So ne never say never. Like there have been some signs that have looked promising, but I have no control over it. I I gain nothing by is a again possibly a dismissive way of putting it, but I am. It is definitely better for me if I put that out of my mind until it happens or definitively doesn't happen, is what I would say.
God, I mean, in your position, I would probably be the exact same. Like, I could not imagine like that possibility even on the horizon. I would probably also be just like sort of just waiting as well for the shoe to drop.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm not seeing anything else at the moment that stands out. If you don't mind, I would like to switch over to talking a little bit about Hell's Heart for our last 30 minutes here.
You absolutely may.
Awesome. So, first of all, the cover, I am such a sucker for amazing book design, and it is beautiful.
It's so good.
It is absolutely gorgeous. Like I said before, science fiction, fantasy, my wheelhouse. Like it was so eye-catching and perfect for it. Um, I would say my first question is, what made you think, or what inspired you, I suppose, to combine this amazingly constructed science fiction world with Moby Dick of all things?
So this is what. So most of the time, I do not have a like a good story because you sort of asked me this about the material really as well, and I had like a well, it's fake dating was a thing. It was my work through trying to do fake dating. This one actually does have a story. So in 2020, during lockdown, I had an amazing idea, and the amazing idea was, what if I got a famously long book? And I read a chapter a day of the famously long book. And then, when lockdown ended and I hadn't got to the end of the fantastically long book, it would seem like it had gone more quickly. Because obviously, lockdown wasn't going to last more than 134 days now, was it? Uh, that plan didn't entirely work, but I did read Moby Dick a chapter a day. Every day I tweeted about Moby Dick, and I tweeted like kind of a summary of the chapter and my favorite silly thing from the chapter in a reverent way. And there wound up being like a little group of us who were like sort of all reading along with Moby Dick and making jokes about Melville's obsession with flukes. Um, and because I am, as I mentioned again, not an expert on most things, I'm a professional novelist. Um, my thoughts went immediately to how would I do a take on Moby Dick? And I played with the idea of you could do it fantasy and it's dragons. Um, but for some reason, what really got stuck in my head is what if you're in space and it's space whales and you are kind of literally like in the atmosphere of Jupiter? And that was as far as I got. And I put that idea like in a box and put it in the like maybe do this as a book one day thing, never expecting anything to come of it. And then I think maybe a year, maybe 2 years later, time is fuzzy, partially because it's 2026 and we've had 3 years happen in 2026 already. Um, a couple of years later, my editor was doing the rounds. Not my editor, sorry, my agent was doing the rounds, and was speaking to someone at tour. And she asked this person at tour, like the question that agents always ask, which is, "What's your ideal pitch? What's the book you really wish someone would pitch to you?" And the editor at tour said, "Moby Dick is a romance." Um, at which point my agent said, "Hold my beer." And she came back to me and was like, "Do you actually want to do the Moby Dick in space thing? Because I've just spoken to a science fiction publisher who wants a romance take on Moby Dick. This seems perfect." And I was like, "Yes, I absolutely want to do that," and they did.
Oh my God, that's such an amazing like sequence of like domino effect to make that happen. I
So good.
absolutely love that. Let's see. Let me flip back to the YouTube here. Uh, hmm. Someone here who is a fan of the material books,
Mhm.
um, but isn't quite sure of Hell's Heart yet. Was it fun for you to write?
Yes. No, it's a short answer, yes. Long answer, yeah. No, it's a very different experience.
Mhm.
But I like world building. It's got a lot. It has got a lot of jokes in it. It's kind of a different style of jokes. Um, it's got a lot of like. So the nice thing about working in a speculative space is you can be a lot more. I mean, and obviously, so the material world books are quite gonzo in places. Like there's bits in there's bits in Father Material where there's it's got an Earl who's in a terrible punk band. Um, but when you're working in speculative space, you can get really, really gonzo with it. Also because I was doing Moby Dick, like a lot of the book is just me doing Moby Dick jokes. There's an entire chapter in the book. So there is an entire chapter in Moby Dick, which genuine scholarly like consensus isn't quite, but at least genuine scholarly attitude is that possibly the chapter is really just a big dick joke, and I put that in the book because I thought it was really funny.
I,
There's a whole chapter about how they deal with the whale's penis. It's probably just a joke, and I was like, yeah, you've got to do that.
oh,
So yeah, yes, it was a fun experience.
I haven't attempted Moby Dick in many years. I did not realize that at all. That is incredible.
I believe the chapter is called the cassock. It's the one about how they deal with a whale's penis.
Oh, I see, I see. That's incredible. I absolutely love that. Um, I think when it comes to like world building, especially, um, it was the way that the you omitted names of like the major players, the major
Hmm.
characters, um, rather than like distancing the reader, I felt from the characters, it made it so much easier for me personally, I would say, to like project onto these characters of
Oh,
like,
interesting.
yeah, like it made me feel like not that I was the narrator, but like it allowed like a sort of sense of like crossing that span of from the real world to this
Oh, cool.
science fiction world and making it more like accessible. But it was such an interesting way to present it, in my opinion.
Oh, cool. No, I'm glad. It sort of came out of just it sort of came out of wanting to preserve the "Call Me Ishmael" thing,
Mm,
and then realizing that Ishmael, right, begins with I, and also first person narrators, right, use
mm,
I. Um, but I think particularly because the core characters are pretty direct one for one replacements of Ishmael, Queequeg, and Ahab, but are also gender flipped. I kind of didn't want to give them like obvious femme versions of the original names. I also didn't want to give them names that completely relate to the original names. I was like, you know what? Just do the letters.
it works so well, like it,
I'm
it
glad.
really does. Um, here's a good one. Why did you choose Latin for Q's native language?
So this one, okay. So this is a complex one. It's not a complex one. It's quite a straightforward one. So Q is the character that stands in for Queequeg. Queequeg in Moby Dick is a bit of a complex figure because obviously it was written in the 19th century. Melville was a 19th century man. He had genuinely traveled. He had genuinely met Polynesian islanders, and Queequeg is from a fictional Polynesian island. Um, there is in actual Moby Dick, there is a language barrier between Queequeg and Ishmael, and Queequeg speaks in a way that I wouldn't necessarily write a character speaking in the 21st century.
Mhm.
Again, it's a bit complex. Like Melville had traveled, it's possible that that was a really authentic portrayal of the way people from that background spoke in the 19th century. I couldn't say for certain, but it definitely codes not great to a modern audience. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to preserve there being a language barrier between I and Q, but I wanted to make it really, really clear to my majority Anglophone. Obviously, the book gets translated, but to an Anglophone audience that the fact that the English-speaking character couldn't understand the non-English speaking character was the English speaking character's problem. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing about Anglophone privilege, the thing about living in a world where English speaking countries have kind of been the most powerful countries in the world for centuries, is that it's very easy to assume that if you can't understand someone's language, well, they should just fucking learn English. And there is basically one language that an Anglophone audience will see and think, oh no, the fact that I don't understand this is my problem. And that language is Latin, because that
Uh,
was the language that the imperialists who ran things imposed on us, basically.
that makes a lot of sense now looking back. It also just it added to that like immersion into the world as well
Mhm.
because it's like it made sense in a weird way for like the old Earth to be speaking like something from Earth, but not like whatever was being spoken by the main characters as well.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And obviously, you get this like this slightly complex sort of with anything set in a secondary world where you're like kind of because presumably actually the language that the other characters are speaking isn't modern English. It's going to be
Mhm.
some dialect from some language thousands of years in the future. I believe they call it Exodite. And similarly, it's not necessarily the case that the language Q speaks is literally Latin, but it's yes,
Mhm.
it's about creating that kind of that sense of it coming from a tradition that is older, but also crucially a tradition that is like obviously complex
Mhm.
and like there is clearly culture that she comes from.
Ooh. So a couple people have mentioned this, that they haven't read Moby Dick. Will the references be lost without knowing the original text? Personally, as I said before, I never managed to finish Moby Dick, haven't touched it in many years. I do not feel like it was necessary to enjoy the story at all.
It
Like,
should not be necessary. So at Tor, I actually have two editors because I have a US editor and a UK editor,
mm,
and my US editor had read Moby Dick and was the person who was like, kind of, I really want Moby Dick as a romance, and my UK editor had not read Moby Dick, so the book was like really specifically edited with a, is this going to make sense if you haven't read Moby Dick hat on? And obviously, there's a there are going to be basically any of the things you need to have read Moby Dick to get are kind of just Easter eggs. They're kind of just jokes.
mhm,
Like you don't need to know that the chapter that's literally just a dick joke is a reference to a chapter in Moby Dick that's literally just a dick joke. Um, you don't need like you don't need to know that the fact that there's a character called Bulkington who appears in one chapter and the narrator says he's going to be really important and then he vanishes is a reference to the fact that there's this character in Moby Dick called Bulkington who is in one chapter who the narrator says is really going to be important and then he vanishes. It's it's just a thing. In general, because the other thing is because it's quite a dense book anyway. So like I
mhm.
hope if you take it on its own terms, you will have a positive experience with it. Uh,
Yeah, that is definitely my experience too with Moby Dick is, I got intimidated by the size and density.
yes, no, exactly.
Um, ooh, Back to like talking about world building. This person commented about the commentary on religion and how commercialized it is. I found that incredibly fascinating too.
But I almost find this one a bit depressing because like the there is no way I would have written this book this way like even 10 years ago. I think okay, maybe 10
Mhm.
years, even 15 years ago because I would have looked at that and gone, no, that's really juvenile. That's the level of satire that an 18-year-old would do, like if they had no subtlety or sense of nuance. Except the prosperity gospel is real. Like
Oh.
the religion that like kind of like obviously it's slightly exaggerated, but the religion that I was raised in isn't actually particularly satirical. Like there
Mm,
really is an increasingly popular branch of evangelical Christianity that literally teaches, as by my understanding of it, that rich people are holier than poor people because that's how God shows he likes you. They literally like encourage people to like send them money
mhm.
in the belief that God will return the money to them, but they'll get more money. Like it's like it's Christianity as pyramid scheme, and it's like, and again, like I try. I try to avoid being dismissive or condescending about other people's religions. I am personally an atheist, but I try to respect people of faith. I try to respect religion. I try to respect organized religion because, like many, many people in the world, are part of organized religion. There are some I do look at and go, that is just a scam. And I will say that the prosperity gospel, I look at that and I go, like, that is just a scam. Um, and a lot of the other religious stuff kind of evolved out of there. So, like, and obviously, because you have the thing with the three churches where you have, like, do you seek is their life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Except the pursuit of happiness is money. Um, but yeah, because well, the one I always circle back to, the one I often mention. Sorry, I'm again, I told you I ramble. The one I often talk about is there's a bit where Q quotes the because a lot of Q's Latin is just direct Bible quotes, and there's a bit where she quotes the line about it being easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven. And then
Mhm.
I does the gloss on it where she's like, kind of, oh yeah, no, it was like the main road into Jerusalem. And that's a slightly exaggerated version of real things that you can really hear people saying in churches today. And that's not even prosperity gospel. That's just mainstream churches
Mhm.
have this idea that that line that very clearly says rich people don't go to heaven obviously can't mean that because rich people give us money. And so there's this whole weird thing where it's like, and you will genuinely hear people be like, "Oh no, the eye of the needle was like a gate that you had to go through, and the camels had to kneel down to get through to it, so it means they have to hum." And like, no, like there's like the people have done research. It is easier for for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle in the language it was written in at the time it was written is basically a phrase like "pigs might fly" or "a snowball's chance in hell." Like it it meant it's basically impossible. That's
Mhm.
what it meant. Um, So yes, so yeah, it's one of like writing satire is hard in the 21st century because reality keeps overtaking you.
Oh yes, yeah, I've heard and seen many creatives commenting on that as well. Oh goodness. This one is interesting. Someone mentioned that they thought about Firefly, the TV show, when they were reading this. Were there any like science fiction worlds that like really deeply inspired you when you were world building for this?
Ooh, trick 'em. So I'm a big Firefly fan, but I don't think it was super on my mind. Partially, because I like Firefly's a Western, and obviously, I suppose from a certain point of view, like kind of like, so I think the only parallelism I would say with Firefly is that because they're both doing a science fiction take on a thing from the middle of the 19th century, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to, were there any specific science fiction inspirations? I mean, it's there's a quote in the beginning from Jupiter Ascending, which is one of my favorite movies. It's amazing. Um, Other than that, it's a lot of it's very broad brush. A lot of it's just very kind of very high level trope stuff. Um, like obviously, if you go into broader speculative fiction, there's a lot of Lovecraftian elements have kind of a but a Lovecraft origin. Um, any other specific? Oh gosh. So the other one is that like an awful lot about like so one of the comps that the book was both marketed with and that I also pitched it to publishers with was it draws a lot on the vibe of the Locktomb series
Yeah, I
and
could
that
definitely
kind
see
of
that.
very irreverent, somewhat horny, um, kind of science fiction, but it's also kind of fantasy
Mhm.
because it's got weird things that just don't really make sense in the high SF context. So that's the other obvious big inspiration. Now I come to think of it. Sorry, it was again. It's really hot over here.
That's okay. I completely understand. We're about at the end here, so it's not a
No,
worry.
I'm so sorry. That wasn't a complaint about time. I just complained about weather. I'm
No,
please keep
you're
going.
good. I was gonna say I'm just going to be mindful of like your time as well, just with the time difference and such.
Mhm.
Um, but let me see here. Oh, speaking of the Log Tomb series, like the sort of vibe that I was getting, your writing in Hell's Heart was still just as like witty and funny as the Material series, but it did have that darker tone that
Yeah.
I wouldn't say depressing through the book, but it painted like a great like dismal mood over the whole thing that
Hey, I gotta
really
be honest,
pulls you in.
it is quite depressing in some ways. Like there's an element of like everything is fucked in the book. I also, again, don't want to spoilers for a 165-year-old novel. The ship does sink at the end of Moby Dick, you know?
That's true. That reminds me as well, like circling back to folks who were asking if they needed to read Moby Dick. It's again, it's a book that's been around for so long. It's like, well, I mean, you probably already know the major plot points you'll need to know to relate. So
Yeah. It's a very
exactly.
like cultural osmosis book. I think especially if you're American.
Yeah. Ooh, there's been a couple of people mentioning if there was any upcoming books or possibly a new material series book on the horizon.
Okay, so I'm slightly slowing down my release schedule. So I've only got a couple
Hmm.
of books out next year, but I do have a fair number of things lined up. So there will be a new material series book coming out eventually, which will probably focus on like so there's a guy that Luke briefly meets in house material called Tyler,
Hmm.
and there's a book coming out about him. Um, And other than that, there's also what else is coming out? So next year I have a book about magical girls. I have a dark rom. I'm working on a like a proper like secondary world romantasy about like two princes who kiss and there's dragons. Um that's also got like kind of irreconcilable alignment differences. And that's a year and a half's worth and yeah, I'll keep you posted.
A lot of those sound amazing. Like I'm very interested. The Dark Rom that sounds amazing as well. Um, okay. Let me see if we have any last questions here. Oh, someone mentioned from what we talked earlier about the religion in Hell's Heart reminds of mega churches, which
Yes.
yeah, that's definitely something here in our neck of the woods. That I was thinking of. I can't remember any specific names off the top of my head, but like the older preachers you would see on late night television
Oh God,
commercials,
yeah.
like yeah. um, let's see. Someone's asking about if we would see Kate Kane again.
Oh, that's a complex one. Like in theory, I would like to return to that series at some point. In practice, I don't think I'm likely to find a buyer for it,
Mm.
and I sort of need to focus on the things that I'm doing for the people who pay my bills. So it's probably best to consider it on indefinite hiatus. It's you never know. I never say never, but I've just laid out the next 2 years worth of stuff, and it's not on there.
That's understandable. I mean, I am excited either way, and it sounds like a great upcoming docket there. So that will bring us towards the end here. Did you have any final things that you would like to talk about or like to announce or say?
Oh gosh, no, I don't, I don't think so. As I say, I've been spending the entirety of today just working out how not to die in the heat. Um, Thank you so much for coming. For coming, again, you see, I can't. Thank you so much for having me. Is what I'm saying.
Of
Thank you
course.
thank you Oh my God, I actually get to. Sorry, no, normally I don't like address chat as like chat, like like I'm a Gen Zer. Like chat is this Riz. Um, God, that's oh God, that was awful. Please forget I said that. Thank you, chat, for coming.
Of course. For those of you listening, we do have signed editions still available of both Hell's Heart and Father material while supplies last, with some a great art insert as well for Father material. You can go to bookloft.com to place an order. You can just leave it in your order comments that you'd like a signed copy, and I will make sure personally that it gets to your hands. Thank you again so much for joining me tonight, Alexis. I had a great time speaking with you, and I hope you have the great rest of your late night over there.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to be here.
Lovely meeting you too. Have a great one.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.